Hey guys, it's Tom Box. Welcome to MST.TV. We got a ruling segment for you guys today because the past weekend, lots of ruling shenanigans have been going on. And funny enough, I looked up at the judges Facebook group and this meme came up, which is hilarious. I explained this one. Even I had to argue in the comment section related to that meme's card. And if you want to talk about it in this video, well, that's not happening. Go check out the previous video about Magical Meltdown and how it interacts with Ash Blossom Joyous Spring. Yeah, it's going to be a fun one, guys. But today's video is not going to be about that. It's going to be about Winda. You know how people keep on saying, oh, you can't Nibiru Winda. You know, Winda prevents the summon. Well, I'm going to give you cases where you can Nibiru Winda. In fact, I'm even going to give you the case where you can even Nibiru an Arc Lord Kristya. That's right, it can happen, and this video is not just about giving you guys the ruling, but rather teaching you guys about the resolution of card effects, even if things seem simultaneous. We're gonna go over all of that in this video. So we got ourselves rulings of Winda versus Nibiru in multiple cases, and Shaddoll Fusion. We're gonna go back into the past and looking at summon memory. Yeah, I made a video about that a very long time ago and I can't even dig it out of my own archives. And we're gonna look at the meta interaction with Shaddoll Fusion, and hopefully you guys catch these misplays, illegal plays, so that you guys don't get screwed over in your next local tournament, regional tournament, YCS, I don't know, whatever you guys play at. But make sure you guys give me a thumbs up and also hit the subscribe ding notification bell to stay up to date with the latest and greatest from MST.TV from yours truly, Tombox, or Nishi if you want to stay up to date with the market. And if you want to go one step further and really help me out, check out the Patreon link down in the description below. And if you are part of that, you guys are going to be hearing about some stuff I've been working on so far. Let's address the obvious here. If El Shaddoll Winda is on the field, can you activate Nibiru? And the answer to that is no, you cannot. And the answer is kind of written right in El Shaddoll Winda. Must first be special summoned, cannot be destroyed by opponent's card effect. Each player can only special summon monsters once per turn while this card is face up on the field, and if this card is sent to the graveyard, you can target one Shaddoll spell and trap in your graveyard and then add it to your hand during the resolution. Okay, that part's irrelevant here, but we're talking about each player can only special summon monsters once per turn while this card is face up on the field. Nibiru's card text, in terms of its conjunction anyways, it special summons itself first, then it does the token summoning. So in that case, it counts as 2 summons, and since you cannot perform 2 summons, Winda will completely lock you out. So people constantly say when you have Winda on the field, you can't activate Nibiru. Somehow that statement got telephoned down to, if Winda's on the field, you can't Nibiru. And that's just not true, because you can have Winda on the field, but the Nibiru can potentially still go through. Scenario number 1. I go ahead and activate my Nibiru from my hand because my opponent has special summoned out 5 times. My opponent chains El Shaddoll Fusion with the goal in mind to summon out the El Shaddoll Winda. Okay, so resolving backwards, chainlink 2 El Shaddoll Fusion sends a Dark and a Shaddoll monster summoning out that El Shaddoll Winda. And he goes ahead and says, oh no, that Winda's on the field, you can't Nibiru. Well, that's not true, because we gotta take a page out of resolution, and if a card has already activated, it will attempt to resolve as much as possible. So we're learning about resolutions here, guys. And so, chainlink 1, we're gonna look at the first part of Nibiru's card text. Since I've already activated, I must go through the resolution text, and the first thing is tribute basically every single monster on the field. Okay, so goodbye Winda, please go to the graveyard and special summon out my Nibiru, and that part is, and if you do so more or less, that's kind of simultaneous. And we're gonna actually go into that detail as well in the next scenario. So I summon out my Nibiru, then I summon out the token with whatever stat that is appropriate for that token. So yes, I just killed Winda with a Nibiru because you decided to chain El Shaddoll Fusion to do so, and I have already activated the Nibiru. So if Nibiru has already activated, even if you put a Winda onto the field, it is going to get killed. Alright, so there's that. Now scenario number 2. Now instead of using El Shaddoll Winda, we're going to use a bigger floodgate monster, Arc Lord Kristya. So against my ritual playing opponent, I go ahead and activate Nibiru from my hand because he's summoned out 5 times and attempting to summon Kristya in some way or form. Okay, that's cool, but then my opponent chains, say Call of the Haunted, targeting Arc Lord Kristya. So chainlink 1, I have Nibiru, chainlink 2, I have a Call of the Haunted. What do you guys think happens with the Arc Lord Kristya? Does the Nibiru even successfully resolve? Well, we'll talk about it right now, after this commercial break. So to resolve this chainlink 2, our opponent uses Call of the Haunted, that's going to resolve and summon out the Arc Lord Kristya to our opponent's side of the field. Okay, well, does that mean I don't get to special summon out my Nibiru anymore? Well, first of all, remember, we're going to resolve as much of the card text as possible, starting off with the tributing of basically all other monsters on the field. Cool, so everything's gone, including that Arc Lord Kristya, but since the card says, and if you do you get to summon out that Nibiru? Because the timing is considered simultaneous. Well, the answer is yes. Yes, you do, because you've met the condition of A, now you're going to summon B. Because, like, even though it says, and if you do, and that thing is considered as simultaneous timing, you're still performing the action one step at a time. You're still doing A, then you do B, because if you don't do A, then you don't get B. So since you did do A, you're going to, and if you do B. So you're going to do B now, which is summon out your Nibiru now. So it's still resolving in somewhat of a sequence to this. And the other part of the sequence is the then part. Since you did tribute something and you summoned out your Nibiru, you're going to generate that token onto your opponent's side of the field. Yeah, so when resolving a card, even if something says, and if you do, even though the timing is simultaneous, you're still resolving it part by part, piece by piece, because there is a sequence to the resolution of your card still. That's not neglected, and simultaneous timing does not mean that it's considered at the exact same time. You have to do both. That's the and conjunctions. It's kind of different. So hopefully you guys stop using Winda as a meat shield. She's not that kind of girl, alright guys? She is much stronger than that when she's already on the field. Okay, now we're gonna go into Shaddoll Fusion. And let's go into the card text of Shaddoll Fusion first. Fusion summon one Shaddoll Fusion monster from your extra deck using monsters in your hand or field as fusion material. If your opponent controls a monster that was special summoned from the extra deck, that can be yours or theirs. You can give them a monster. You can also use monsters in your deck as fusion material. You can only activate one Shaddoll Fusion per turn. Let's start with the obvious one here using the last line. You can only activate one Shaddoll Fusion per turn. If the activation gets negated, it doesn't count as a copy. So if your opponent uses Solemn Judgment, they just traded 4,000 life to do a 1-for-1 trade as you activate your second copy of Shaddoll Fusion. Yay, that's great! Now, let's go into the meat of this video for Shaddoll Fusion anyways, which is that now, if your opponent controls a monster that was special summoned out from the extra deck, remember that there are ways that monsters can remember or forget where they're from. If the only monster on the field, say, was a Fusion, Xyz, or Synchro monster, and that monster gets flipped face down during the chain which you have activated Shaddoll Fusion, during the resolution of that Shaddoll Fusion, you're going to be forced to fuse with cards in your hand, as when a monster is flipped face down, it is still remembering that it is a special summon monster, but it is no longer remembering that it was from the extra deck. Yeah, sounds kind of weird, doesn't it? But it is very much so true. It just doesn't remember where it's from. Now, that is not the case for temporary banishment. If your monster, say like a Time Thief Redoer, banishes itself, but then comes back onto the field, yeah, it's still considered as a monster that was summoned out from the extract. Unless it said, special summon this card from the banish zone, or like special summon this card from wherever it was banished from, then that's a completely different story. But Time Thief Redo specifically states banish this card until the end phase. It never really got summoned back. In other words, it still has knowledge, or rather it still carries the data that it was summoned out from the extra deck. So if you activate Shaddoll Fusion on that Time Thief Redoer, yeah, you do get to use your deck as material, whatever that you may want to use it for. That's something that I've talked about in a previous video a long time ago. If you guys can find that video and leave it in the description about like summon memory and stuff like that, yeah, I would really appreciate that. Maybe I should redo that video since I've kind of completely lost it anyway, and it's a good refresher. Okay, now I'm going to try to explain to you guys why you can always use Ash Blossom Joyspring versus a card like Shaddoll Fusion, and why you're not always allowed to use it against cards like Nightmare Phoenix and Nightmare Cerberus and the entire Nightmare package in general. So for Shaddoll Fusion, if you read the card text, it states that if your opponent controls a monster that was special summoned from the extra deck, you can also use monsters in your deck as fusion material. That would count as sending monsters from the deck to the graveyard. So yeah, Ash Blossom Joyspring would be able to activate. Now that whole card text is still considered as part of the first one, even though it is in a different sentence entirely. It still resolves as part of this same effect. So it's inclusive. That's part one. Part two is there is no guarantee that your opponent won't control a monster that was summoned out from the extra deck during resolution. So that part is on or off, so you will just consider it as one whole chunk of card text, and therefore Ash Blossom Joyous Spring is allowed at all times. Your opponent could literally just go ahead and chain Shaddoll Fusion, and now that they've put a monster that was summoned out from the extra deck, Shaddoll Fusion that you've just activated, yeah, it can just go ahead and just dump stuff from the deck now. But likewise, if your opponent removes the monster, well, you're not guaranteed. So it's that lack of guarantee the reason why you can always use Ash Blossom Joyous Springs, and that's why that chunk of the card text is always considered as part of the same effect. As for the Nightmare monsters, if they're ever summoned out not as a co-link, then the activation clause would have already checked whether or not it was co-linked or not, and since it was not, it will never include the other chunk of the card text in there, so there is a guarantee that it will never draw an additional card from the deck when they discard and activate their effect. However, if they are summoned in a co-link, and even if the co-link is removed, the thing is, it checked the summon during immediately, so it already identified that it activated while it was co-linked, so even if the monster that was co-linked with it is destroyed, you'll still get that draw, and there's a guarantee, and therefore you can use Ash Blossom Joyous Spring. Yeah, it's the whole guaranteedness of whether or not you'll get that effect that kind of makes a huge difference when it comes to that chunk of the card text for Ash Blossom Joyous Spring. Does that make any sense to you guys? Hopefully I explained it clear enough. If you guys got any more rulings that you guys want to talk about, leave it down in the comment section. I actually have a generic ruling segment coming up in the near future. It's because more and more card effects have 2 effects, and well, that's 4 effects, so 2 effects, and I want to know what you guys think about how things resolve, which ones resolve during resolution, and like I wanted to help you guys identify various key parts in the problem-solving card text to help you identify how to resolve those cards properly, and whether or not you declare the effects first or not, and whether or not certain hand traps work against them. That's for the next video, and I go into a lot of detail for it. Just a little bit more research on my part, but I think it's necessary that everyone kind of jumps on board that, because card effects with multiple resolutions are just becoming more and more rampant these days. That's all I got for this video, guys. If you guys enjoyed this video, learned a thing or two, hopefully you guys will not get cheated. Hit that thumbs up button, hit subscribe, because if you don't hit subscribe, your next judge that's going to talk to you is probably going to give you the wrong ruling, and you're going to feel pretty salty about that. So yeah, make sure you guys hit subscribe and ding the notification bell. And if you guys want to help out with this channel, check out the Patreon link down in the description below. Check out some of the stuff I've been working on. That's right, guys. Secrets. You guys can't see it, but I would like to hear your opinion, and maybe you can help control some of the stuff that I'm working on as well. And until next time, I'll see you guys in the next one.